How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it breaking down all the latest key reporting in Mets land. And folks, a lot has happened over the past 24 hours. Get you guys set for that 3-game gauntlet in Cincy against those Reds, as the Reds look to find themselves bridging the gap more between themselves and the Mets for that final wildcard spot. We're going to wrap up today's show by previewing that Cincinnati Reds matchup, what you need to know about Game 1, Game 2, and Game 3. But before we get there, let's break down the hot reports, the hot button topics headline by Francisco Alvarez, as he is set now to return this Mets team beginning this Friday. We'll get into not only how Alvarez has performed in his latest rehab assignment, but ultimately, what are the Mets getting in El Troll, and how did he fare leading up to his injury now that he now has not one, but 2 different finger injuries that he will be dealing with throughout the entirety of however long he's here with the Mets down the stretch for the remainder of the season. We're going to talk also about a guy who just got the call up to this Mets team that Alvarez helped plenty in his previous minor league assignment going back to July, and that is Mets top pitching prospect, not Noah McLean, not Jonathan. Folks, it's time for Brandon Sproat. We broke down Sproat extensively on the platform this past 24 hour between not only our live stream initially reacting to the news, but I also did a segment there with my guy Brendan London and the New York Post that we since have posted on the platform that I'll show you guys in a little bit, a snippet of, so you guys have an idea as to what to expect on more of the initial reactions and what you're getting in Sproat. I will further expand on that because this is exciting times for this Mets rotation, while also cautiously optimistic times, knowing that your veterans are the reason as to why this is happening. It's not just because of Sproat pitching well, but it's because of guys like Sean Manaea being batting practice and not looking healthy. Kodai Senga being batting practice and not looking healthy. And speaking of the devil, we're going to talk about Kodai Senga in this one, as we know that there is a key decision to be had as if he's going to be sent down the minor leagues or not. We're going to get into all the latest there, what is leaning more in favor or against him being sent down and why as of now. From there, we're also going to get into more guys in the minor leagues, including Garrett. How is he faring in his rehab assignment, as we have some key news to touch on his front, as well as the Mets making a sneaky signing, picking up Suero, reliever from the Atlanta Braves, and we're going to get into why you guys should have some cautious optimism with Suero, how he's been looking unbelievably well to a degree, and we'll expand as to what exactly that is, why he's not looking so good in other aspects, and what the Mets are getting there and their latest reliever pickup for this bullpen. Like I said, we'll touch on the Reds and everything else in Mets land before wrapping up this one. So hit that like and subscribe button as you guys first chime in. It is a great way to support the platform, and sit back, relax, and get yourself ready for the ride, which is our latest Mets breakdown here on the WardyNYM platform. All I ask is that you smash those buttons if you haven't already. Let me know all your initial reactions and thoughts in the comments down below to the following topics that we're going to break down today. Shout out to our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek that have you covered for all your ticketing needs. Just utilize our promo code WARDY10, that is WARDY10. That way you too get your 10% off your next ticket purchase, whether it's Mets tickets, NFL tickets, as the season is officially upon us. As we know, the Eagles just took that first game of the year 24-20 or so against the Cowboys, and what was a heated battle between the two teams there that we see from the NFC. Whatever you need in the ticketing space, SeatGeek has you covered, as well as Moomoo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets, but we will get into Moomoo later on in today's show. Folks, let's first begin today's conversation by getting into the very exciting news regarding El Troll and Francisco Alvarez, because in case you guys have been living under a rock or just didn't see from this past night, let me enlighten you. El Troll's back, baby. Mets call-up news from yours truly here, initially from Mike Puma of the New York Post, that Alvarez will return from his rehab assignment tomorrow, that being today now, for the New York Mets. Let's not forget, Alvarez had over a 1,000 OPS as month-long sample size since returning from his previous minor league stint. 2 busted fingers, not a problem for El Troll. And in case you guys are wondering just how did Alvarez fare there in his rehab assignment, which led him to now gain the call back up with this Mets team, well, I think this has something to do with it, just a little bit. Oh yeah, just, grand slam. Big grand slam for Francisco Alvarez in his final game there for AAA Syracuse. That is very exciting. And now that Alvarez is returning the Mets team after hitting that grand slammy while catching that ball game, mind you, it's important to make note of that. Alvarez was not utilized solely as a DH. No, he was catching. This is the same man who has a broken left pinky on his hand, as well as a partially torn UCL in his thumb area, a UCL sprain that will require surgery in the offseason. Since then, the Mets have made a custom splint for that right thumb. They've also numbed the area, and whatever they've had to do to keep that left broken pinky stable, Alvarez looks like he doesn't have an injury whatsoever. He's an absolute dog. Do not ever underestimate this man's work ethic. He is doing everything in his power to make sure that he not only returns the Mets team, but returns in stride, eerily similar to what he did before he went down with his initial injury. Because let's not forget how vital and how important Alvarez was to this Mets team. When he went down with injury, going back to August 17th or so, the last time they played with the club, we have not necessarily expected initially the Mets offense to stay hot. Thankfully, they did. Since Alvarez went down with injury, this offense has been arguably the best in baseball, and that's a very encouraging thing. That was something that I was concerned of, the Mets losing that immediate spark that Alvarez was giving, but Vientos carried the torch, Beatty carried the torch, and everyone their mother since then, headlined by Juan Soto, has done a great job in that regard as well. But by bringing Alvarez back, who again was batting right around 300 with 1,100 OPS or so in a month-long sample size, adding that bat, even if he's 85 to 90% of what he was before the injury, that is a massive upgrade. And this is not to slight Luis Torrens, who has been a man possessed since Alvarez went down with injury. He has an over 1,000 OPS. He has been so unbelievably clutch, and we appreciate that. Senga has gotten the job done more than fine as your backup catching option. That's a defensive first-minded catcher. So the Mets have a very interesting decision on their hands now, because they really have 3 to 4 guys that they can consider sending down for Alvarez as a corresponding move. And you say to yourself, are the Mets going to consider a 3-man rotation of catchers, knowing that you have an Alvarez who's banged up, or are you going to just have 2 catchers and maximize the rest of your roster to your ability? I think the Mets are going to go with the latter, and for that reason, I would anticipate that Hayden Senga will be the corresponding move that we find out. But if it is not Hayden Senga for one reason or another, because of maybe what I just relayed, that they do want 3 catchers because they have a concern with Alvarez's health to a certain degree, maybe they just don't want him to catch there as much as you'd initially think because of those hand injuries. If that is the case, then maybe we would see a guy like Jared Young get the immediate send down. We know that the Mets have an abundance of guys, but the main reason as to why WardyNYM, for example, hasn't been sent down yet is because the Mets are trying to keep him on the roster as long as they can, because as long as Mauricio doesn't get to a certain amount of games or so in the minor leagues this year, I do believe that that keeps the Mets in control of his latest option on his contract. And the Mets do care about that, obviously, as we know that Mauricio does have the chance to potentially blossom into something greater for this club, given greater opportunity next season. So, in case you guys have been wondering, why have the Mets been stubborn with Ronnie Mauricio? Why haven't they set him down when he's been utilized so little? That's kind of one of the main reasons as to why right now. It really isn't anything else, because again, they've been utilizing him so few and far in between. So whatever the case may be, whoever the Mets decide to officially send down, know it will be for good reason, and know it's because you're bringing El Tro Francisco Alvarez right back in the heart of this Mets lineup. Just the idea of Alvarez raking similar to what he was before his injury, and the bottom half of this lineup, 6, 7, 8 on, I mean, this lineup quickly looks like easily one of the best in baseball. I mean, that's not even an exaggeration either. When you've had now a month and a half long sample size of Mets being the best team in baseball with runners of scoring position, so night and day from when they were a bottom feeder the majority of the year that we were screaming, kicking, and crying about what felt like all summer long. But to see how much they've really rewrited things with their offense is what has me most enticed and excited. Because when you have a guy like Lindor, when you have a guy like Nimmo, when you have a guy like Soto, who's really locking the heck in more than he ever has this year in a Mets uniform, when you have Alonso, when you have Jeff McHitz, who's looked brilliant for the vast majority of the season, when you have Mark Vientos, who's finally a above league average hitter right now per Fangraphs in WRC Plus, and has just been utterly dominant with the clutch bat, really since just before Alvarez went down with injury. It's been about a month now that Mark Vientos has been looking fantastic at the plate. Brett Beatty has consistently had multi-games for you while repping rock-solid defense. Cedric Mullins has been the biggest hole in this Mets lineup outside of Tyrone Taylor until Tyrone started to hit a little bit and then went down on the injury list retroactive to August 30th with that hamstring injury. So it feels like really everyone has been starting to hit at the right time. Torrens, red hot, as we mentioned, since Alvarez went down. But the thought of Alvy back in here, balancing time with Torrens, so that way they both get their fair share of reps, I think that this is going to bode unbelievably well offensively for this Mets team. And at the same time, I think it's going to benefit this team greatly on the pitching end, because as we know, the Mets did make a call up and they did bring up Brandon Sproat. And as I expanded in my segment there with the New York Post, that you guys can check out on the New York Post Sports YouTube channel, as well as just checking out the video that I dropped here myself on the platform this past day, which was from the Post as well there in my conversation with Brandon London. I really highlight in a shorter term fashion on what the Mets are getting in Sproat right away. And something that I didn't really get a chance to relay on the platform on my live stream yesterday, but I will more so today, especially is that approach that Sproat has had and the adjustments against left-handed pitching. That cannot be understated. And shout out to my guy James Shiano for reminding me on exactly what the key differences have been, because we know that Brandon Sproat has been going more sinker heavy after being solely a four-seam fastball guy that we saw what felt like most of last season. And the problem with that four-seam fastball is it's so susceptible to be getting hit hard. It's a flat fastball, so even when he's touching 99 and 102 on the gun, it's only going to take you so far. And as you guys can see per pitch profiler here on X, he has the four seam, the slider, the sweeper, the slider, the sinker, and the changeup and the curveball, all around league average, with the one pitch being far and away the best above league average pitch, the sweeper that we're seeing. So the sinker is being utilized less against lefty batters that we've seen over the past month and a half, 2 months now. Same thing can be said with the sweeper. And just on the forefront, without even doing a deep dive, that makes a lot of sense, especially if Sproat was getting barreled as hard as he was in the first half against left-handed batters. The easiest way to have a remedy with this is to, again, make sure you're not leaving meatballs over the plate. You can do that a lot if you're handing a sweeping slider instead of maybe going down and in there to really buckle him up and sort him. If that puppy's handing middle, what do you think's going to happen? It's 420 feet out of here is what it's going to be. So Sproat has really found to in his arsenal heavy sinker usage, but against those right-handers in particular, right? Against lefties, he's going more spam on the changeup and the curveball, and that's led to more of the great success he's had, which is why now if we take a look at Brandon Sproat's hopefully final ever start for AAA Syracuse, guys, he went 7 scroll innings of 91 pitch, 3 hit, 2 walks, 0 earned run ball, 9 strikeouts, and now has a 1.74 ERA over his last 10 starts. If you go about his collective ERA since June 25th, it's right around 2.4 or so. His Caper 9's right around 2.6, almost 10.6, almost 10.7. So while his baseline ERA is 4.24, that is really an inflated number when you understand the context of how much better Sproat has pitched that we have seen over the past north of 2 months now. So because of this reason, that is why he's getting the call, paired with the Mets' continued inconsistencies that they've been having from their key veteran rotation starters in Sean Manaea, in Clay Holmes, in David Peterson as of late, and now most notably that we're going to transition to in a couple minutes here, and Kodai Senga. What is next for Senga? That's a big question, right? But what we know is that Brandon Sproat getting the call for this Sunday is to replace Senga in the rotation right now. No doubt about it. And as Mehdi has stated himself, the Mets are going on a start-by-start basis in regards to, and not only in regards to Sproat, but this entire rotation. So no one's like a clear lock to stay here necessarily long-term, and they don't perform consistently. So it's going to all be about performing consistently. This puts pressure on the veterans, which I like. How can they handle the pressure? One would say pressure makes diamonds, but that might not be the case for these veteran starters who have just been laboring mightily here in the second half of the season. But Sproat is looking to add not only a jolt into this Mets rotation of similarity to what McLean and Ton has done, but it kind of show you that, listen, the future is now. You know, this three-headed monster that the Mets haven't had of in-house talent since around a decade ago with the Harveys, with the DeGroms, the Thors of the world, the Zach Wheelers, even though Wheeler is technically a Giants prospect that the Mets acquired for Beltran all those years ago, but still feels like he was a homegrown talent for the Mets, all things considered. The point is that for the first time in a decade, really, the Mets are having a consistently homegrown talent-built rotation. Like, if the Mets get to any point down the stretch here before the season ends, and if they go in a rotation that consists of Noah McLean, Jonathan, Brandon Sproat, David Peterson, and Tyler McGill, as McGill is officially done with his rehab, it appears, then you say to yourself, oh my goodness gracious, this is literally the first time in over a decade that the Mets had a fully homegrown rotation. That is what we're going to get to next, depending on what the Mets decide to do with someone in Tyler McGill. But in the case of Brandon Sproat, guys, I'm excited. I know you're excited as well. And now, while we're excited about Brandon Sproat and his upside, let me preface that if Sproat gets rocked on Sunday, it's okay. Obviously, we're going to be bothered in the interim, but let's please cut the kid some flack here. There's a reason why he wasn't the first nor the second pitching prospect the Mets considered. He was the third. And the reason for that is because, again, Sproat looks like he's the most susceptible of being hit hard at the major league level amongst the three pitchers. It's not a slight on Brandon. If anything, it's just a greater compliment as to how deep this Mets farm is right now, pitching-wise. The best in baseball, no doubt about it. But Brandon, how does he approach these left-handed batters? How does he handle early adversity? McLean, after giving up 2 runs in the first and walking a pair, went on to shut down 14 consecutive batters in the very good Detroit Tigers. Can Sproat have similar flashes like that? Will he be more of a guy that's kind of a 5 and dive? I think he will kind of fall in that category. But all I'm saying is, regardless of what Sproat does or doesn't do this Sunday against a Reds team that's out for blood against the Mets, and for a great reason in this wildcard race right now, and in a batter's park, the hardest ballpark to pitch in, not named Coors and not named, obviously, the bank in Philadelphia, in which the Mets will be at after this, because of course they will. Let's just preface and settle our expectations for Brandon Sproat and just be happy with what, hopefully, anything positive he can provide. If he dominates, electric. If he doesn't, it's okay. At least we know what we have in him and can kind of move forward from there. At least there's no stone going unturned for David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza, and this Mets team when evaluating their rotation. But speaking of rotation, guys, we don't just have Brandon Sproat to talk about. We got to talk about Mr. Kodai Senga, along with Wander Suero. What are the Mets getting in that signing in Suero? How can he immediately impact this bullpen? Garrett, that Cincinnati Reds preview, and a whole lot in between. But before we get into all those things, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor at Moomoo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. Folks, have you been seeing that big orange bowl that's making Mondays at Citi Field way more exciting? I'm talking about our amazing sponsor on the platform at Moomoo. As the #1 Mets channel on YouTube, I absolutely love to break down stats, analysis, really getting into the nitty-gritty and numbers, and that is why I love so much Moomoo, because they do exactly that with that same analytical approach when it comes to investing. It's a trading platform with professional-grade tools and premium research that other companies usually charge a pretty hefty price for, all come for free when you sign up as a customer with Moomoo. But folks, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And thanks to Moomoo's partnership with our beloved New York Metropolitans, all Moomoo customers can get free tickets to any and every Mets home game on a Monday throughout the course of the season. That's right, folks. Free baseball all season long for the greatest fan base in sports. Not to mention Moomoo Millions. If the Mets pull off 100 wins this season, one lucky Moomoo customer is going to come out winning $1 million. And what's nuts about this is that Moomoo has already given away $10,000 when the Mets hit first 25 wins this season, as well as $20,000 when they hit the 50-win mark. And when the Mets inevitably hit 75 wins, they're giving away $30,000. But as much as they love baseball, Moomoo's #1 priority is jump-starting your investing journey, which is why they're giving the WardyNYM community up to $1,000 in NVIDIA stock just for making a qualified deposit and becoming a Moomoo customer. So folks, what are you waiting for? Head to start.moomoo.com/Wardy, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description to join the Moomoo community. Now, let's get back to our Mets. Okay, folks, now let's continue our conversation and let's get into one Kodai Senga, because we have all been waiting to find out the word. What are the Mets going to do here with Kodai? And it does appear, everybody, that barring changes, should we find out contrary reporting later on today, from everything that's been relayed my way and everything that we've seen publicly, it does appear that Kodai Senga is going to accept that minor league assignment. Now, if he doesn't, and that is contrary from my initial, talking here, then one, I apologize, and two, we will further break that down later on today on the platform in our post-game show, if not sooner, I promise you. So either way, in regards to Senga's official status, that is to be determined at the time this video being recorded. This is recorded 12:48 a.m., that being September 5th, before we have official word. But between what Andy Martino has continued to relay for SNY, among others, everything is basically indicating that the Mets do want to send down Kodai Senga. And the fact that they're as adamant as they are about sending Kodai Senga down is telling of, we know he's been batting practice, and you can't always throw a guy in a phantom IL stint. Billy Big Bucks, Billy Upper, if you know, can only get away with these things for so long before getting caught, right? So the Mets need to make a very smart and savvy decision with Senga, who has looked like a shell of himself with a 6.6 or so ERA since returning from his latest injury this season. And because of that reason, that's why the Mets have found themselves in a position where they might be destined, they might be best suited to, in fact, again, send Senga to the minors at minimum for 10 to 15 days, whatever it needs to be. And you say to yourself, on one hand, Senga could be sacrificing having any role in the rotation if the Mets blossom without him, and then he's boxed out entirely heading into postseason play. But then that same breath, you say to yourself as a Mets fan, you want your best options out there, like Carlos Mendoza is relaying. And nothing about Kodai Senga tells you that he is at all a better option for the Mets over their rookies. Like, that is how bad Senga's been. He's been so bad that the early dominance of Noah McLean, the nice, solid first outing in Jonathan, and hopefully a strong first outing in Brandon Sproat, is paving the way for what the Mets are going to likely configure for the rotation going forward. David Peterson, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, all these guys need to do is just be better than Kodai, because that's how low the bar has been. And a lot of them haven't been as good. Manaea's been right down their bottom barrel horrendous along with him. So the same conversation that's had with Senga also applies to Manaea. But for Manaea, it is, I think, more on the idea of, oh, and I also apologize for this, everybody. I realize that we just got out of focus with the camera, but that's okay. We're going to adjust this live in real time because I am not restarting this show and going out of my way to chop this all up. So let's see if we can get this fixed in timely fashion. I apologize, everybody. This happens in the live streams every now and then if I look away from the camera for more than 2 seconds, and there we go. All right. Hopefully it wasn't too long that I was blurry for you guys. But as we continue on with Kodai Senga, the point here is that while Sean Manaea might be more destined for, an IL stint that could shut him down for the year, I think that we're leaning more towards that way, and the Mets cannot figure out something with him in fast because he has been a liability, no doubt. But Senga now, you go about this in a couple ways, because if he doesn't accept the minor league stint, he knows he has multiple years left on his contract, and the Mets have control here. So this doesn't benefit him, nor does this benefit really anybody in the sense of if the Mets maybe want to try to trade Senga in the offseason or at some point in the next year. It doesn't look great when your guy says no. You understand where Senga's coming from as a guy who's clearly looking like our ace in the first half of the year up until he went down with injury, that he can still be that guy. But I think the happy medium as to why he will hopefully accept this minor league stint has to do with the simple fact that he has been horrendous. He knows he's been horrendous, and he does care. We know Senga cares. He's an emotional player, and sometimes maybe it's a little too emotional in the sense of what's going on in that noggin there. For whatever the reason may be in regards to his struggles, health, mentality, combination of the two, what have you, it does appear it's in the best interest for him to be sent down, work on his game, get that comfortability back. We saw how much it benefited a player like Francisco Alvarez, who took it positively, just ran with it, did what he needed to do, and has been looking like 10 times the player than what he was looking like when he first started the year in June, when he made his debut along with McNeil there, as they both came back from injury at the time. So we will wait and see the official word on Kodai Senga, but should he get sent down, come back to this conversation and remember everything I just relayed to you guys, why he's doing it, why it makes sense, especially for rotation right now that's on a start-by-start basis. The Mets are not locking down Kodai Senga as a certainty next year in the order or after that, the same way that they're not doing it for any other starter right now and their rotation. And when we speak about the pitching for this Mets team, we cannot forget that they just made a move, and they made a really interesting move. They picked up from the Atlanta Braves, that being a veteran reliever, everybody, for those that are unaware, don't remember, Wander Suero. And Suero, we're going to Suero, potato. We're going to show you highlights of him with the Dodgers from the past, couple seasons. There aren't too many Suero highlights to find out there, so I did the best I could. But let's get into what the Mets are getting here, because I'm going to tell you the baseline numbers, and then I'm going to show you why the Mets picked him up. So Suero pitched just 6 innings so far this season. He has a 10 strikeouts per 9, a roughly 6 walks per 9, an 11 ERA, but a 4.4 expected ERA. Why you shouldn't care about any of those numbers is as simple as this. It's 6 innings. It's 6 innings. The last time Suero pitched anything with a sample size at the major league level beyond 6 to 8 innings was 2021, his final year with the Nationals, that we remember plenty. I remember Suero plenty during his times with DC, when he was good and then when he was bad. And his final year with the Nationals, he had a 9.2 K per 9, a 3.1 walks per 9, but an egregious 2.3 home run per 9, doing his best Robles impression, pointing up on the fly ball. That's clearly a bomb. If you know, you know. 6.33 ERA, 5.51 expected ERA, almost a 6 FIP. Just horrendous numbers. So why should we at all be intrigued by this pickup in Suero? Well, it's twofold. It's one, what has Suero done this season? Well, let's take a look, everybody. As you guys can see right here, right now, Suero, in courtesy of Dave Lazat here on X, breaks down what he's done in the minor leagues. Best of luck to Wander Suero as he moves on to the Mets. Had an impressive year with the Ghost Stripers of AAA for the A's. Not the A's, I apologize. The Atlanta Braves. Posting a 1.35 ERA, a 1.03 whip, a 203 opponent batting average, and 11.39 strikeouts per 9 across 43 games. He ended on a 9-game scoreless streak, 10.1, and still leads the International League in saves with 12. So Suero has been utterly dominant, and he's made some adjustments clearly that boded him so well in AAA. Now, when we talk adjustments, when we talk pitching lab, you like the idea of what the Mets can work with someone like Suero here. At that same time, in that same breath, we can also say that Suero, again, hasn't really been anything more than a guy that you're probably just going to consider for innings eaten. And I think that's to a degree the category that we're falling in with someone like him. But an interesting little wrinkle in regards to Suero and his club control is the fact that he does have a minor league option left. So there is a world where Suero not only pitches for the Mets as a innings eater, kind of a garbage time guy, but a guy that they send down and then bring back up, in a relative span because of the fact that, again, he still has a minor league option. Now, because Suero was not in the organization prior to August 31st, I do not believe that he is playoff eligible. Not that I would think that a guy like Wander Suero is a guy that the Mets will be relying on in postseason play, but just for the sake of having the conversation, if he hypothetically just looks brilliant for the Mets and limited opportunity, what the Mets are getting is a guy that, again, has stuff, has been around the league, been around the block for a while. He's not young, and at the young age of 33, I should say, he's got pretty much 2 pitches, right? Or at least that's what we've been seeing at the major league level. It's what we've seen in not just the changeup, but you're also getting in the cutter. So we'll see how Suero fares with this New York Mets team, how he blossoms or not with them. But in simple terms, for people wondering why did the Mets make this pickup, they got a guy that was dominating in AAA. They like the idea of that potentially transferring over in lower leverage spots for the Mets in the bullpen right now. And he's not a guy that they have to immediately expose as a DFA candidate should they not wish to do so right away. So there's some flexibility here with Suero, and I think the Mets are appeal to that. So whether he's here for a week, whether he's here for the remainder of the season, now you know what there is to know about Wander Suero as potential upside for this Mets bullpen. And the simple answer to that is his upside is a guy that, again, can kind of be like a Huascar Brosman for you the first half this year. Get some quality outs for you in lower leverage situations and kind of take that for what it is and move on from there. Set the tone for the bigger guys in the bullpen that you're going to rely on, as hopefully a guy like Ryan Helsley can be competent, even though that's hard to believe right now. Tyler Rogers, Gregory Soto, Edwin Diaz, you name it. The Mets need some stability from their bullpen. Let's see if Suero provides anything more than just maybe being a quick innings eater where he goes 2, 3, 4 innings after a starter yet again doesn't go deep for this Mets team. We shall await and see. Garrett, everybody, did begin a rehab assignment that we saw for the Mets over the past 24 hours or so there for the AA Rumble Ponies, and we're going to check live in real time to see how he fared there in that Rumble Ponies matchup, because I do believe that he went to scoreless, but I'm just going to double check the numbers right now to make sure that I did not misspeak on any of the following. And as I scroll through this one right now, there are the Rumble Ponies. They lost 6-3 this past night, unfortunately, to the Rubber Ducks. What a name. AJ Ewing was brilliant yet again. In case you guys don't know just how good AJ Ewing has been, let me go on the smallest tangent, but the best tangent imaginable, because AJ Ewing is one of the best high-rising prospects in the Mets organization that's a hitter. Let's bear in mind how good AJ Ewing has been, everybody. This man currently has, oh my goodness gracious, 69 steals, nice, on the season total. He's going to have a 70-plus steal year in the minor leagues, and he's batting .391 with a .906 OPS in AA. It's not a matter of if, but when AJ Ewing gets the move to AAA. I think part of the reason why it hasn't happened yet is because of Ewing, where he's being utilized. He's a guy that can play center for you. He can play all over the place. But the Mets have 2 guys already in AAA that fit that bill, in Carson Bench and Jet Williams. So they have a little bit of a logjam there right now. But Ewing, since being moved up from High A Brooklyn to AA, oh my God. Like, he is just getting better and better. Had a multi-hit game and an RBI here for this Mets team. Nick Morabito looked very good as well. But we're not here to talk about this prospect report. Let's here to talk about Garrett. As Reed actually went 1 scoreless inning, so I did misspeak for a second. That's okay. In that scoreless inning, he allowed 1 hit, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and 2 strikeouts. So Reed, as we initially were told, maybe wasn't going to have much of a rehab assignment. There was belief that he would kind of just get right back on the high horse and return this Mets team. Well, he did have a rehab assignment. So I don't know how long Garrett is going to be out, but I can't imagine it's that long before the Mets ultimately bring him back in the fold for this bullpen for the better. And hopefully a less inflamed elbow for Garrett will be a healthier, better looking one that we saw in the first couple months of the year versus what we've kind of seen since mid-June, which has been mediocre at best. He's been sitting right around a 5+ ERA or the pat really all summer long, and it'd be great if that starts to change by him getting this much needed rest on a 2-week interval the way that he did on this latest injured list stint. So last but not least, guys, let's wrap up the show. Let's get into the series preview. The Mets are facing the Cincinnati Reds, as we are aware of. Game 1 starting this Friday, and we're going to cover it here on the platform at minimum in a post-game fashion. We may do a playback live stream throughout the course of the weekend, so be on the lookout for that. Head over to playback.tv/WardyNYM. Become a member. It's free. All you need is an MLB TV subscription to take part in it, and you can watch a Mets game in real time with your guy Wardy as I commentate and react while we listen to GKR do their thing as they do so brilliantly. But Game 1 of the series, Friday. Who do you have towing the rubber for the Mets? David Peterson and his 3.6 ERA, coming off of a horrendous 2-inning, 8-earned run outing, trying to rewrite the ship big time and fast against Abbott, who's been one of the better starters in all the National League with his 2.6 or so ERA there for the Cincinnati Reds. As we know, as we take a quick look at what the current status is of the Reds and postseason play, they have work to do, everybody. I clicked on the wrong thing. I apologize. Let's go ahead and click the right one here. As we see, the Mets currently have a 5-game lead on the Reds, a 4-game lead on the Giants. So the Reds are trailing 2 teams now for that third wildcard spot. So they're going to try to come out guns a-blazing. They got curb stomped by the Toronto Blue Jays in at least 2 games out of 3 when they were hitting a lot, but the Blue Jays were hitting even more. And in that batter's park in Cincy, we know the bats are going to be guns a-blazing. I anticipate so much offense from both teams this weekend. I think one of the younger starters in Ton or Sproat may not dominate and have a fairly mediocre outing. Not that I wish it. I just really think it's going to be an offensive-heavy weekend for the obvious reasons. Huge matchup. 2 teams still in competition for that final wildcard spot, with the Mets having a comfortable lead right now in the standing. The Reds in a do-or-die situation basically on their season now. The Reds get swept. That's basically wraps for them on any chance to crack the wild card. But they win 2 out of 3 or sweep the Mets. That's a completely different conversation. Then we're kind of sweating more as to if the Mets are even going to comfortably secure a playoff spot or not. But between the pitching matchups as well as the offense and the intensity of this playoff race, I will not be shocked if we see more batters galore like we've seen the Mets do plenty now over the past month of baseball, where they have been number 1 in baseball in pretty much every offensive statistic. Now, Game 2 in this series is a big one as well, as you're going to see Brady Sainer in his first year in the Cincinnati Reds uniform with a 4 ERA facing off against Jonah Ton as 1.8 ERA, as Ton is 1-0. He began his young career. Jonah's looking to build off of what was a very exciting debut. We did see him miss a decent amount of the times there with the fastball inside those lefty batters. It'll be interesting to see how he adjusts second, then hopefully third turn in the order as long as he's still out there in this batter's park against these Reds and Cincy. I'm very excited, though. And then this series finale, Brandon Sproat towing the rubber against to be determined for the Reds. We don't have official confirmation as to who that starter is going to be for the Reds, exactly that yet, but we do hope that in the case of Sproat, I'm just hoping that Sproat can give us a rock-solid 4 to 6 innings in that range. I won't be overly upset if he doesn't give us length because, again, it's his MLB debut. We have no clue what to expect. We know he has the stuff, but putting that together at the major league level is a different discussion. We know that Sproat's been more of a up-down consistent option versus McClain and Ton, who have been steadily consistent all year long from the minor leagues to the AAA level. Sproat is a little bit more the wild card, has elite stuff, electric stuff with the velocity and that sinker. That fastball, though, leaves quite a bit to be desired when it obviously is a meatball middle, just flat, not a lot of movement going, not a lot of great shape. So how can the Mets remedy Sproat, utilize our arsenal for the batter? That is something that we're going to wait and see this Sunday that I too look forward to. But Mets fans, that is going to do it for our latest breakdown here on the platform, breaking down all the latest key reporting from Francisco Alvarez, Brandon Sproat, Kodai Senga, Suero signing with this Mets team, or I should say was picked up via waivers, but same thing, Garrett, and the Reds preview and everything else in between. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Let us know your key takeaways in the comments down below from everything that we broke down. I'll see you all later on today at the time of this video dropping for our latest Mets postgame show live here on the platform between the Mets and the Reds. Thank you guys so much as always. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. And as always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.